This video is to show how to change the drive belt or tooth belt on the Model 8 core cutter. The one in the video you can see is a greenish gray color. It also applies to the black belt that is found on older machines. But what's important is that you'll want to change a belt, a green belt to a green or a black to a black. So the first thing before we get into the drive area here is we want to make sure the machine is turned off, and we'll unplug it as well to make sure that nothing's going to start off. We'll remove the main drive assembly guard with a 3/16 Allen wrench. T-wrenches are quite convenient to do that. We remove two 1/4 20 bolts that hold the drive assembly guard. This is the drive assembly here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to relieve the tension on the V-belt here. And to do that, we're going to loosen the nuts on the hex shaft here that provide tension to the motor. And then we're going to have to screw the threaded rod downward toward the floor, which will allow us then to lift the motor up toward the table. Okay, so I'm screwing the threaded rod downward toward the floor. And we'll see if that's enough for me to allow the V-belt to be released. So I'm going to lift up on the motor, and now you can see I have clearance that I can pull the V-belt out. And then this will just work its way out from between the pulleys by kind of turning the pulleys and moving the belt over. That should come out. That there. Okay, so to begin to remove the belt that we're going to replace, I'm going to take a 5/32 Allen wrench, and I'm going to loosen and then loosen the set screw on this collar, and then remove this collar from the tightener shaft that's holding everything. So there's the collar removed, which I'll set over there. If the machine has been well greased, there will be some grease involved here that we'll have to clean up after. Okay, so now what I want to do is begin to pull this pulley outward as I slowly turn the belt by hand. And what's happening is I'm basically walking the pulley forward toward myself, and the belt should be staying toward the back, coming off of the pulley, which it is, slowly. I'm about halfway off, and I can actually maybe push the belt back a little bit as well as I work it off. Almost there. This is a brand new belt, so it will probably be tighter than a belt that you're replacing. So now I have the pulley set removed. Now I have access to remove the belt. And you can see it's a serpentine arrangement, goes over and around that. So I just want to follow that as I remove it. Like that. So there is the belt removed from the machine. So at this point I would take my new belt and start to install the new belt in the same order that I removed the old belt. So what I'm going to do is, again, following the serpentine pattern, I need to go over over that gear, around my idler, back up over the top of the second gear. So there is my belt now in position on the machine. And now I need to reinstall the pulley set. So the tooth pulley goes to the back, and in the same manner that I pulled the pulley off while I'm working the belt, now I'm going to push the pulley on as I work the belt. So I just get it started by engaging a little bit of the teeth there as I rotate. So now I got things started. So now I'm just going to push the pulley set backward, making sure the belt is sliding onto the gear as I go. Okay, and there we are. We're just about set. Okay. So there we're back against, there's a collar back here that I'm pushed against. Now I'm going to reinstall the collar that I took off earlier. Tighten the set screw. So now our new tooth belt is installed. Okay. All right, now I'm going to put the gear V-belt back on. So I'm going to walk it in between the V pulley and the tightener shaft into that little space there. Now that's installed. Lift the motor up. Engage the lower pulley, and now the motor's hanging from the belt, but I need to apply tension to the belt. So as I screwed the threaded rod downward to loosen everything, now I'm going to turn the threaded rod upward so it goes against the table, and that will push the motor downward and apply tension to the V-belt. So threading this upward. There's a couple nuts on the threaded rod that lock it in position, so you may have to turn, readjust the position of the nuts on that threaded rod as you move this up and down. So I'm just about up to the table. Okay, I made contact with the table, so I can just maybe push down a little bit on the motor and continue to screw upward. Now I've got some tension on that belt. So I can turn this by hand, and the reason I'm turning it by hand is what happens is your belt will track on the pulleys. And your new belt may track differently than your old belt, or it may be exactly the same. This one, because it was a new belt I took off and put back on, it's tracking exactly the same. And by tracking, we mean the position of the belt onto the gear belt pulleys. And what we want is we want the belt to be centered on those pulleys. And the way you, if it's not that way, the way you do it is you would adjust the gear belt pulley in the direction it would need to go to be more centered. So by loosening, say, for example, let's say this gear belt pulley right here is too far to my right or toward the camera. Okay, I would need to move it in that direction to get it centered on the belt. I would loosen the collar that's behind here, move the collar toward the back of the machine, and then push the gear belt pulley over against the new position of the collar, and then reset this collar. So in essence, I've moved it this way onto the machine further, thereby centering it under the belt. And we're only talking about very minor adjustments there, a 1/16 of an inch at the most before you check it. So make your adjustment 1/16 of an inch, whatever way you need to go, and then you can turn the belt by hand like this, and what you'll see is the belt may position itself centered where it needs to be over the gear belt pulleys. If you need to make a second or third adjustment to tweak it, it doesn't have to be perfect, but what you don't want is you don't want the belt hanging off of the gear belt pulley. As long as it's on, centered is ideal, but if you're on inside the pulley, that's acceptable. So this one here is okay. So what I can do now is reinstall my guard. Don't drop the screw. There's usually a little bit of play in the holes when you're putting this guard back on. So just make sure that the holes of the guard are centered on the grease fittings of the tightener shafts. It should be pretty close right out of the bat, but just make sure of that. Okay, so my guard has been reinstalled. At this point, I'm ready to apply power back to the machine, start it up, and I should be able to run with a new belt installed.